This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Well, a lot of the guys here in OVW have a lot of appreciation for what Chris has been able to do with his body. So much so that, as the story goes, Matt Morgan started referring to him as the masterpiece. And Chris kind of liked that idea. So he sat down with Jim Cornette and explained the whole masterpiece name. And what do you know? That's how it happened. This masterpiece, Chris Masters persona. What was the communication like when something like that happened in OVW creatively with the talent? Would that go through Johnny Ace or go through you, or how would that be communicated up the ladder?
We let OVW for the most part create and be able to come up with things and try different creative approaches down there to see what would hit and what wouldn't. Sometimes we would use them, sometimes we wouldn't. And we watched the TV show and we saw the different guys and how they were progressing in their training and who was getting better and who wasn't. So that was it. I mean, that was all, but you look at him and the masterpiece name fit him perfectly.
What'd you think when you saw the presentation of the masterpiece, the whole ring entrance, the music, the whole deal?
I thought it was great because again, it fit Chris.
Yes.
It was like, if you're going to look at him and you were going to chisel that statue, that's what you chisel. That would be your masterpiece.
I get from that standpoint why people compared him to the narcissist persona of Lex Luger. Similar in that regard, but not in any other way.
Yeah, pretty much. Just from the bodybuilding physique.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a worry, I would imagine, that you're calling up someone too soon before they're ready. I mean, we've seen that happen over the years with a few guys where it's just too much too soon, which is a story a lot of times in wrestling. Were you concerned with Chris Masters being so new to his wrestling career? I mean, there's a lot of guys, like Stone Cold was a wrestler for 8 years before he really got a big break with the WWF. And now, what do you know? Chris Masters is going to be there before he can legally drink a beer.
Well, let me give you my philosophy on this in general is that sometimes you're going to look at someone that may have it. They may be able to put everything together and perform and be that unique performer that you're looking for. If you go back in history and go to the early 90s through, the mid 2000s, I would venture to say that every single talent that was brought up from development on first impression when they were brought up was they're not ready.
Right.
Okay. They may not be ready, but you're never going to be ready for the show until you go to the show and find out. So that was always my philosophy. I would agree. You know what? They're not ready. But can you get them ready? Can you accelerate this thing? Can you put some gas on it and find yourself a real experienced driver to be able to fine tune that machine and get it ready? You're only going to be able to do that in the show, and you can only go so far in developmental. And so I would always go throw back to that, from Edge and Christian and Val Venus. Just go on down the list of every new talent that we brought up from the mid 90s until, to throw John Cena in there. You throw Brock Lesnar in there, Randy Orton, Batista. They're not ready. They're not ready. What are you doing? God, these guys are green as shit. Yes, they are. But if we don't go now, when are we going to?
I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at SaveWithConrad.com.
Go.
Yeah. It's the old Zig
So-
Ziglar. If we wait until all the lights are green to head to town, we'll never leave the house.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just got to go sometimes. And I would share that on Chris. Yeah, he's young. Yes, he's green. But is he going to learn more up here, or is he going to learn more down there?
So he's brought up to some house shows. He's teaming with Matt Morgan against the Basham brothers, the Dudleys, and even gets some dark match wins at TV over the likes of Funaki and Val Venus towards the end of 04. From the Observer, as I suspected, the minute they saw Masters at TV, they'd bring him up a year too early. And I hear it's most likely for Raw and just a few weeks away. It's getting pretty good now when I predict the mistakes a month before they do them. But then again, I did say every way they could botch up the invasion angle before the angle ever got started. And they did everything I expected and worse, including spending the money I figured they'd eventually spend for Bischoff, Flair, and Goldberg a year later, and botching their potential even after botching the invasion. So what do you know? Meltzer, Nostradamus, predicted that this was going to be a mistake. I don't know that it was, though.
I don't know that it was either.
Let's talk about something else he wrote here. An incident involving Bob Holly and Rene Dupree at the November 20th SmackDown house show in Syracuse should result in a suspension or termination of Holly's career with the company, but it seems likely that won't be the end result. The description of the incident is that during a Dupree and Kenzo Suzuki tag match under hardcore rules with Holly and Charlie Haas, with no apparent provocation, midway through the match, Holly smashed Dupree with a ridiculously hard chair shot to the head, which left the chair dented. Dupree was laying in a fetal position next to the ring, with Holly hitting him time after time with legitimate all-out punches. When Holly got up off Dupree, Dupree's left eye was badly swollen shut. Dupree went to get his title belt and walked off, while at the same time, Suzuki pinned Haas to win the match. The timing of this seemed to indicate either it was one of those internal punishment deals that everyone but the victim was aware of ahead of time. Holly then came after Dupree again, and Dupree ran to the dressing room with Holly chasing him. Neither Suzuki or Haas left. The agent Fit Finley came out and started talking to security about what happened. There were also reports of Holly going after Dupree a second time backstage. Undertaker, who is SmackDown's unofficial leader, went to bat defending Holly, and in some circles, there was the attitude that Holly was just taking care of company business. Dupree is largely disliked in the locker room, and there was a feeling he had screwed up so many times that this was his punishment. All this makes perfect sense within the mentality that a lot of wrestling has had forever, which is another example of how internally there is a really screwed up and outdated about the mores of this business. However, at the November 23rd SmackDown tapings, Holly worked a dark match and had to put over the developmental wrestler Chris Masters, who was expected to be called up to one of the main rosters within weeks. Dupree, with his eye looking a mess, worked a SmackDown match, losing to Rey Mysterio. So, a lot to unpack here. I think we've talked about the Holly Dupree thing a lot. It was a personal issue between the two of them. He clearly took it too far. It is rather old school, but it is what it is. But it's an interesting story that dovetails nicely here, because Rene Dupree was another guy who was brought up really, really young, had a great look. And now if I'm Chris Masters thinking, wait a minute, he just beat up the new guy, the young guy, and now I'm the even younger guy. I don't know about this, but Chris Masters, perhaps as quote unquote punishment, whatever that means, gets the win. I got to think, if I'm Chris Masters and I see what's going on with Rene Dupree, I'm pretty fucking nervous about this opportunity now.
Again, we've talked about it ad nauseum before, and I don't remember the incident at all, but I think that, Masters had nothing to be nervous about.
Well, it's just a lot for a young person. I'm getting ready for my TV debut. This is my big chance. And I take a look at another guy who's similar age, and I'm like, oh Lord. And then how about this? The first vignette of the masterpiece Chris Masters airs on January 10th, 2005 on Monday Night Raw. At this point, do you think you guys already had the master lock figured out? Hey, here's going to be his finish. Here's what we're going to call it. All that jazz. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.